I pressed the red button and watched a billion-dollar company collapse in real time. Not with a virus. Not with sabotage. Just by refusing to do the one thing I'd done every single day for 10 years, press accept on my phone at 5 p.m. But let me back up, because the story of how I brought down my own family's empire started about 3 hours earlier, in a boardroom that smelled like expensive champagne and lies. Ladies and gentlemen, the sole genius behind the Sentinel system, my son, Chase. The applause was deafening. I stood there frozen while my father Philip handed the microphone to my brother. Chase. The guy who couldn't code a single line if someone held a gun to his head. The same guy who was a gambling addict and treated our company accounts like his personal ATM. Philip leaned in close, his smile never wavering. "Don't make a scene, Ruby," he whispered, his voice ice cold. "You're just the mechanic. Mechanics don't get equity. Now smile, or you won't even get a severance package." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my security badge, and set it gently on the mahogany table. It made a soft click that nobody heard over the cheering. Then I turned around and walked out. I walked past the investors, past the champagne fountain, past the $1.2 billion worth of technology that was about to become very, very expensive paperweights. I sat in my 10-year-old sedan in the parking garage, engine cold, listening to the muffled bass of celebration music thumping through the concrete above me. My name is Ruby. I'm 32 years old. And for the last decade, I've been a ghost. Inside that building, they were toasting the future of Sentinel MedTech. They were celebrating these Class 3 robotic prosthetics that could let a paralyzed person run a marathon. Revolutionary stuff. Life-changing technology. But here's what they didn't know: every single line of code, every safety protocol, every FDA compliance log had my digital fingerprint all over it. Chase couldn't even spell compliance. He was too busy blowing money at underground poker games and coming to me at 2 a.m. begging me to cover his tracks. Again. I spent my 20s cleaning up his messes. Working 18-hour days fixing his errors, covering for him, making sure our technology didn't accidentally kill someone. I signed every safety log because Chase didn't even have the license to do it. I was the safety net that caught him every single time he fell. And you might be wondering, why? Why did I stay for 10 years? Why did I let them use me like that? It's not a simple answer. Psychologists call it the trap of normalized cruelty. My father didn't break me in a day. He chipped away at me slowly, methodically, since I was a kid. He taught me that love was conditional, that my value wasn't inherent, it was functional. I was only valuable when I was useful. I remember when I was 12. I won the state science fair. I ran home, bursting with pride, holding that blue ribbon like it was made of gold. Philip didn't even look at it. He just pointed to Chase, who was crying over some broken toy car. "Fix it, Ruby," he said. "Your brother is the statue. You are the pedestal. Without you, he falls. So don't you dare move." That was the lesson. I wasn't the art. I was the support structure. I wasn't the star, I was just the gravity keeping their world from spinning apart. They trained me to be invisible. They trained me to believe that being the good daughter meant setting myself on fire to keep them warm. They thought that training would last forever. But they forgot one thing. If you remove the pedestal, the statue doesn't just look less impressive. It crashes to the ground and shatters into a million pieces. I looked down at my hands. These were the hands that wrote the code. The hands that secured the safety of thousands of patients. And these were the hands that held the only key to the kingdom. My phone buzzed in my lap. The screen lit up with a notification I'd received every single day for 3,600 days straight. 5 p.m. The daily automated prompt from the Sentinel Central server. I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed with a simple white notification box. Biometric handshake required. Level 5 administrator. Authorized daily operations. For 10 years, I'd pressed that green accept button without thinking. I pressed it on Christmas morning while my family opened gifts without me. I pressed it during my best friend's wedding while hiding in the bathroom. I pressed it while I had the flu, on dates, while burying my grandmother. That button was the leash that kept the billion-dollar dog walking in a straight line. Philip thought he'd stripped me of my power when he took my plastic security badge. He thought firing me meant I was gone. He forgot that he hadn't just built a company. He built a kingdom of Class 3 medical devices that required a licensed monarch to function. And he just exiled the queen. I propped my tablet on the steering wheel. The company was live-streaming the event for global markets. On screen, Philip was laughing, clinking his glass against the lead investor's champagne flute. Behind him, the Sentinel Mark IV prototype arm was performing a delicate piano sonata, its titanium fingers moving with perfect fluid grace. It was a masterpiece of engineering. My masterpiece. Zero equity, I whispered to myself. I looked down at my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen. The green button meant safety. It meant keeping the peace. It meant swallowing the insult, going home, and hoping they might throw me a few crumbs of gratitude later. The red button meant war. I didn't hesitate. I didn't shake. I pressed decline. On my phone, a new message flashed. Authorization denied. Initiating emergency protocol. I looked back at the tablet. At the live stream. The piano music stopped. Instantly. The Sentinel arm didn't just slow down, it froze mid-strike, fingers locked in rigid protective rigor mortis. The sudden silence in that boardroom was louder than the applause had been. Philip frowned, tapping his glass again, thinking it was just a pause in the program. He turned to the prototype and waved his hand, expecting the motion sensors to pick him up. The arm stayed dead. Then came the sound. A low, rhythmic pulse began blaring from the display console. The FDA-mandated alarm for an unsupervised device. Beep, beep, beep. The investors stopped drinking. They exchanged confused glances. Chase rushed over to the console, his face pale. I watched him furiously tapping the screen, trying to bypass the lock. He looked like a toddler trying to fly a spaceship by banging on the dashboard. A large red banner scrolled across the presentation screen behind them, replacing the Sentinel logo. System locked down. Unauthorized operation. Licensed supervisor missing. All units disabled. Philip's smile vanished. He spun around, his eyes scanning the room, scanning the crowd, looking for the one person he'd just thrown out like garbage. I took a sip of the lukewarm water bottle from my cup holder. The show was just beginning. The silence in my car was shattered by the ringtone I'd assigned to my father, a jarring, repetitive siren. The name Philip flashed on my dashboard screen like a threat. I picked up. I didn't say hello. Turn it back on. His voice was so loud it distorted the speaker. I could hear chaos in the background. Investors shouting. Chairs scraping. That relentless beeping alarm. Turn it back on right now, Ruby. I know you did this. I know you rigged it. I leaned back in my seat, watching the live stream on my tablet. On screen, Chase was sweating through his expensive suit, frantically mashing buttons on a console that was completely dead. I didn't rig anything, Philip, I said calmly. Almost bored. I told you, I'm just the mechanic. And since I don't work there anymore, I can't authorize the safety protocols. Don't give me that technical garbage, he screamed. You sabotaged the fleet. You planted a virus. I will sue you for everything you have. I will bury you so deep you'll never work in this industry again. It's not a virus, I corrected him. It's a feature. Specifically, it's the 24-hour supervisor mandate required for Class 3 medical devices. Without a licensed administrator to biometrically sign the logs, the system defaults to safe mode to prevent patient injury. It's not sabotage, Dad. It's the law. I don't care about the law, he roared. I have investors here. I have $1 billion deal on the table. Fix it. There was a scuffling sound, then my mother's voice came on the line. She was crying. That breathless, high-pitched sob she used whenever she wanted to manipulate me. Ruby, please, Josephine begged. How could you do this? How could you be so cruel to your brother? This was his big night. He needs this win. Why are you trying to destroy this family? I closed my eyes for a second. There it was. The classic pivot. When threats didn't work, they switched to guilt. They didn't care that Philip had just fired me and erased my existence. They only cared that I was ruining the party. I didn't destroy the family, Mom, I said quietly. You did. When you sat there and watched Dad give my life's work to a gambling addict. You chose your side. We gave you a job, she shrieked, the mask slipping. We fed you. We let you play scientist in that lab. And this is how you repay us. By embarrassing us? Give me the phone. Philip snatched it back. His breathing was ragged. Listen to me, you ungrateful little brat. I want the override code right now. Give me the password, and maybe, I won't call the police. I looked at my hand again. The thumb that had pressed decline. There is no password, Philip, I said. It's a biometric key. It scans the unique vascular pattern of a licensed engineer's thumbprint. Specifically, my thumbprint. Then come back here, he demanded. Get in here and unlock it. I can't do that, I said. Why the hell not? Because you fired me, I said. And as you so clearly pointed out, mechanics don't get equity. So unless you're planning to sign over 50% of the company in the next 5 minutes, my thumb stays with me. You can't do this, he stammered, reality finally hitting him. You can't just walk away with the keys to $1 billion company. I just did, I said. Good luck with the investors, Dad. I hear they hate surprises. I tapped the red end call icon. The connection severed. The sirens stopped. On the tablet, I watched the lead investor stand up, button his jacket, and walk out of the room. Philip chased after him, grabbing his arm. Desperate. Pathetic. I put the car in gear. I wasn't going home. I was going back. Not to fix it, but to finish it. I walked back into the lobby of Sentinel MedTech. The security guard, old Mr. Matthews, couldn't look me in the eye. He just buzzed me through the turnstile with a shaking hand. I took the elevator up to the penthouse floor. I expected lawyers. I expected a settlement offer. I expected Philip to slide a piece of paper across the table with a number that had too many zeros, trying to buy back his dignity. I was naive. I forgot that when you corner a narcissist, they don't negotiate. They annihilate. The boardroom doors were open. The atmosphere inside was heavy, suffocating. The investors were still there, sitting in tense silence. Chase was leaning against the wall, scrolling on his phone, looking bored. Philip stood at the head of the table. He wasn't sweating anymore. He wasn't screaming. He was adjusting his cufflinks. Looking calm. Too calm. I'm here, I said, stepping into the room. Let's talk about the equity I was denied. Philip looked up. He didn't smile. He looked at me with such profound sadness that for a second, I almost believed it myself. I'm sorry, Ruby, he said softly. I really didn't want it to end like this. End like what? He nodded toward the side door. It burst open. 4 men in windbreakers stormed in. They didn't look like corporate lawyers. They moved with aggressive precision. On the back of their jackets in bold yellow letters, FBI. My blood ran cold. Ruby Kingsley, the lead agent, barked, crossing the room in 3 strides. Hands where I can see them. What is this? I asked, backing up. I didn't do anything. We have a sworn affidavit from the CEO of Sentinel MedTech alleging corporate espionage, wire fraud, and the deployment of malicious ransomware, the agent said. He grabbed my wrist, spinning me around. I looked at Philip. He was shaking his head, playing the role of devastated father to absolute perfection. He held up a thick manila folder. She rigged the system, Philip told the agents, his voice trembling with fake emotion. We have the logs. She planted a virus to hold the company hostage. She demanded 50% of the shares to unlock it. It's extortion. The cold steel of handcuffs clicked around my wrists. The sound echoed in the silent room. I stood there, physically restrained, while the people I'd served for a decade watched like I was some criminal. The lead investor looked at me with pure disgust. To them, I wasn't the architect anymore. I was just a bitter, unstable ex-employee trying to burn down the building. I didn't plant a virus, I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. It's a safety protocol. Check the code. Save it for the judge, the agent said, tightening the cuffs. Chase pushed off the wall. He walked over to me, grinning. Leaned in close. So close I could smell the expensive scotch on his breath. I told you, sis, he whispered. Dad's always one step ahead. You think you can steal my company? Enjoy prison. My mother, Josephine, was sitting in the corner. She wasn't crying anymore. She was looking at the floor, refusing to witness the monster they'd created. Philip, I said, looking directly at my father. You know this is a lie. You know I didn't rig it. We tried to help you, Ruby, Philip said loudly, performing for the agents. We gave you a job. We gave you a purpose. And you betrayed us. The agent shoved me forward. Let's go. As they marched me toward the door, my mind was racing. They'd planned this. They knew they couldn't beat me technically, so they decided to bury me legally. They framed me. They turned my own safety measures into a weapon. I looked at the prototypes, still frozen, still flashing red. Philip thought arresting me solved his problem. He thought if I was in a cell, he could force me to give up the keys. He didn't realize that by putting me in handcuffs, he hadn't just framed me. He'd walked directly into a federal trap he didn't even know existed. The agent was reading me my rights, but I kept my eyes on the flashing message behind Philip. System lockdown. FDA Protocol 21 CFR Part 11. Philip was glowing with victory. He'd taken my work, erased me from the company, and now planned to jail me to finish the job. But he forgot about the lead investor. Wait, the investor said, pointing at the screen. That error code, that's not a virus. That's federal compliance. The agent paused. The investor walked over to him. Search 21 CFR Part 11. That's FDA regulation for electronic records in medical devices. The agent pulled out his phone. Started typing. His face changed as he read. This regulation, the investor continued, requires a licensed regulatory supervisor to be present for Class 3 medical device operations. If she's the only licensed supervisor and you just removed her from the facility. The agent looked up at Philip. Is she your only licensed regulatory supervisor? Philip's face went pale. Answer the question, sir, the agent said. Technically, but... Then by removing her, you've shut down this facility. By law. The agent turned to me. Ma'am, do you have documentation showing you're the licensed supervisor? In my office, I said. 3rd floor. Everything's logged. The agent nodded to his partner. Go check. He turned back to Philip. Sir, if what she's saying is true, then operating Class 3 medical devices without proper regulatory oversight is a federal felony. This is ridiculous. Philip sputtered. She's trying to extort us. Show me the logs you mentioned, the agent said. The ones proving she planted malware. Philip fumbled with his tablet. Pulled up files. The agent studied them for a long moment. These aren't hack attempts, he said slowly. These are safety audits. Dated and digitally signed. He looked at Philip. Where's your son's regulatory license? Silence. He doesn't have one, does he? The investor said. He was looking at Chase now with dawning horror. You've been operating with an unlicensed engineer. You told us he designed the system. He did design it, Philip insisted. Then where are his credentials? The investor demanded. He turned to his associate. Pull the SEC filings. Now. Within minutes, they had the documents spread across the table. And there it was. Chase listed as chief engineer. Claims of his sole authorship. Patent applications in his name only. All lies. These are falsified, the investor said, his voice deadly quiet. You told us your son was a licensed biomedical engineer. You showed us credentials. He is, Philip said. No, I said quietly. He's not. I signed every compliance document because he doesn't have the certification. Check the FDA submissions. My digital signature is on every single one. The agent's partner returned from my office with a stack of files. Sir, he said. Every regulatory document, every safety protocol, every FDA submission, it's all signed by Ruby Kingsley. There's no record of Chase Kingsley having any regulatory credentials. The agent looked at me, then at the handcuffs on my wrists. Get these off her, he said. The cuffs clicked open. My wrists were sore, red marks already forming. Mr. Kingsley, the agent said, turning to Philip. We're going to need to see all of your regulatory filings. And your financial records. This is absurd, Philip shouted. Is it? The investor cut in. He was scrolling through his phone now, his face getting redder by the second. Because I'm looking at trading data right now. Your stock price has been artificially inflated. Someone's been manipulating the numbers. He turned his phone around, showed the screen to the agents. Those trades, he said, pointing. They're timed exactly with your quarterly reports. Reports that claimed operational capacity your facility couldn't possibly have without a licensed supervisor present 24/7. Chase, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. Check Chase's access logs. He's been overriding safety limits to make the prototypes perform better for demonstrations. That's why I had to keep signing off, to prevent the systems from flagging his violations. The investor's face went from red to purple. You've been faking performance data? To boost stock prices? That's when Chase made his mistake. It's not faking, he snapped. The machines can handle it. Ruby's just paranoid with her safety protocols. We didn't need. He stopped. Too late. Everyone in the room had just heard him admit to overriding federally mandated safety protocols. The agent pulled out his handcuffs again. But this time, they weren't for me. 3 months later, Sentinel MedTech was gone. Seized, liquidated, bankrupt. The FBI investigation uncovered everything. Chase had been falsifying performance data for 2 years, overriding safety limits to make the stock price climb. Philip had been helping him cover it up, using my licenses and signatures without my knowledge on documents I'd never actually reviewed. The billion-dollar investment? Built on complete fraud. Chase took a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison for securities fraud and medical device violations. My mother abandoned ship the second the handcuffs went on. She called me once, begging for money. I didn't answer. Philip fought it, hired expensive lawyers. But the evidence was overwhelming. He was out on bail, waiting for trial, facing 20 years. I only went back to Sentinel once. To buy some equipment at the liquidation sale for my new company. Philip was there, out on bail, screaming at the movers who were stripping his office bare. When he saw me, he tried one more time. Ruby, he said, walking over. Still trying to sound like the father he'd never been. We can fix this. We can rebuild. I'll give you equity this time. Real equity. We'll do it right. I looked at him. This man who'd spent my entire life teaching me I was worthless. This man who'd taken my work and given it to my disaster of a brother. This man who'd tried to send me to prison to cover his own crimes. And I realized something. His power had never been real. It was just money and volume. Without the cash, without the company, without people afraid of him, he was no one. He was just a pathetic old man who'd burned every bridge and destroyed everyone who'd ever loved him. No, I said simply. Ruby, please. No, I repeated. You don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to use me. You don't get to hurt me. You're done. I walked past him. Didn't look back. Outside, the sunlight hit my face. I pulled out my phone and unlocked the servers for my new business. Kingsley Medical Solutions. my name, my license, my future. Sometimes the only way forward is to let the wrong system collapse completely. To walk away from the people who treat you like a tool. To press that red button and watch everything burn. And then, when the ashes settle, you build something new. Something honest. Something that's actually yours. I started my car and drove away from Sentinel MedTech for the last time. The pedestal was gone. And the statue? It had shattered into a million pieces, just like I knew it would. But I was still standing. Thanks for listening. If this story hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about standing up, walking away, and building the life you actually deserve. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop holding up someone else's world and start building your own.